All right, welcome everyone. It is day 4 of Automate, and we are here at Automate Live, wrapping the rest of the trade show up. I'm Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, with, of course, my co-host, Chris Luecke from Manufacturing Happy Hour. Today, we're going to have a great conversation on what is AI doing in the industry? What is AI going to be doing to leverage the skill gaps? How do engineers leverage AI to make their life easier, working alongside AI every day for tasks? And there's no better person to discuss that conversation with us than Kence Anderson. You're the co-founder and CEO of Composable. Kence, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. It's been a great show. It's been a really great show so far.
Fantastic. You've been talking about all the different sessions that you're having. People are in standing room only. You're bringing in chairs, which is great because it shows that AI isn't just a buzzword. People want to know how they can actually apply it to make their lives easier. So let's dive into who's Composable. You guys recently just wrapped up 2 days ago over $4.25 million sitting on. So first of all, congratulations
Thanks
on
a
that.
lot.
That's amazing. Who's Composable?
I appreciate that. So really, the idea here is empowering engineers, with intelligent building blocks and tools. Engineers have been building things before AI, been building things before computers, and so I really believe, and this is what we were teaching in the classes that I taught for the last 2 days. I taught 8 hours worth of classes here at Automate, and there was a quote from one of the folks that took my class that said, hey, you know what? I thought I was going to have to get a PhD in AI. But the framework that you taught us in the class for how to integrate machine learning and how to stitch together, learning AI and how to stitch that together with traditional automation makes me realize that I can participate in this. And Composable is a platform that allows folks to implement this methodology. I call the methodology machine teaching because it's really about if machines can learn, then we should teach them something. And the great thing about teaching is teaching's a lot more accessible than low-level programming, where you might need, to get a 4-year computer science degree, a master's or a PhD in AI, but learning to teach a machine, what you really need is expertise. And there's 100 million engineers out there in industry that have expertise. And so Composable allows you to take almost any algorithm on the planet, like any machine learning, computer vision model, auditory processing model, prediction model, combine it with learning technology like deep reinforcement learning, that same technology that learned how to play chess and Go by playing against itself and then beat the best Go player in the world. You remember that back in 2016? To combine that with optimization and controls and the things that engineers are already using. And the no-code UI allows, you to type an LLM prompt to basically say, hey, I want to train an agent to control this, Festo robot, or this, drone, or this mobile robot, this extruder, and type in the goals, kind of what phases, what some of your expertise, you're going to include that in the prompt, and then the platform is going to hit the LLM, and the LLM is going to create a bunch of skills for you, a bunch of goals that you can use as building blocks to drag and drop into the platform, drag and drop into the agent. And then you can take folks like data scientists who do write code, and they can publish the models and the algorithms that they create, controls engineers too, to the platform, and that makes it truly low code. So now a process engineer can take their expertise and say, well, I know these are the skills you need to learn because these are the skills I teach to, actual people, on the floor. Drag, 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 drop, 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 click train locally, train on the cloud, and then you have an agent that you can deploy to actually control a system, an entire process, like an entire manufacturing line, or make virtual decisions like supply chain and logistics.
Yeah.
So I have a question. This is, maybe it's going to be a different way of re-answering the question we were just talking about, but you talk about the no-code UI platform, how you can leverage it to implement machine teaching. But I'm going to go back to the first thing you said, is this is all meant to empower engineers. So describe what the empowered engineer of the future looks like. I'd love to hear it from kind of that human angle.
I like that. I think that roles are going to change. I heard this story on NPR many years ago about a furniture manufacturer that was having a hard time hiring people. They brought in a robot, and their foreman thought, well, that's it for my job. But the foreman ended up becoming the person who programmed the robot, maintained the robot, was the expert who hired people to work in the robot, and so his role fundamentally changed. Another example, I was at years ago, I was at a chemical manufacturer, a very large chemical manufacturer, and I was designing some AI for them, and they were talking to me about how it's not about, to them, first of all, to do this task took 7 years of training. Now imagine that. Imagine 7 years of on-the-job training. And they're not thinking, oh, wow, AI is going to replace me. They're thinking, wow, we only have like 10% of the people who are experts. Everyone else needs more help, and the experts need to go off and do other things. So imagine a situation where you shrink that training from 7 years down to 2 years because they're teaching them the machine teaching paradigm. They're training agents, they're building agents. Agents are also training them. And now it not only takes only 2 years to learn how to do this job, but they bring a bunch of AI coworkers, co-pilots, whatever you want to call them, that they personally built and designed into the control room with them.
Awesome. So when we look at deploying these type of solutions, does it work through partnerships? How do partnerships and working with Composable match this long-term strategy of bringing AI to these engineers and workers?
Yes, that's a great question, especially when it comes to the mid-tier, right? So I think system integrators are super important. So we have an ecosystem of system integrator partners. One that we do a lot of work with, for example, is Rovasys, a big automation partner, and they're already doing a lot. They're filling in the gaps, right? So there are engineers who are going to use Composable themselves. But one of the challenges is, and this is another role change, the purview of most process engineers is to run their process. So innovation is not part of the purview, and so these folks are doing it, late hours, kind of in their spare time. So I think roles are going to have to change that allow the average engineer to innovate. But in the meantime, and maybe after that also, system integrators are required to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Especially in the mid-market where you're not going to have a data scientist, you're not going to have deployment software engineers, and you're not going to have a sophisticated IT department. Those system integrators are crucial to be able to implement this.
So Jake had mentioned earlier in the conversation that you just got your latest funding round, $4.25 million, I believe close to that number. What I want to ask you is, you also just celebrated your first year as a company, as Composable. So again, congratulations on that
Thank you.
milestone. But I want to ask you, what is one major thing you learned in that first year, whether it's related to running the company or whether it's about the technology?
Yes, and it's both. It's really an intersection of both, because we decided to wait a year to really release a no-code UI, though we knew that's how you get to 100 million engineers. We built a Python SDK first. And I wanted to give it to system integrators, and I wanted system integrators to tell me whether this was ready for prime time. And I remember last year, this is before we signed our first 2 Fortune 500 customers, and system integrators were telling me, I love this. And I was like, well, what do you love about it? There's not even a UI to it. They were like, I love the fact that it's modular, the fact that I can incorporate anything I'm building, anything I'm doing into these agents, and it's not this black box, it's not this off-the-shelf solution. It's something that I can actually infuse with my expertise and customize to my customers.
So you gave a great example of the foreman who thought his job was going to be replaced.
Yeah.
He learned out that, hey, my role is changing.
Yes.
And I think that has a lot to do with the culture and the mindset of thinking. So what in our industry either needs to change culturally in order for people to look at this technology not as a hindrance, not as a replacement, but as a tool? Or can you give us an example of how there is a great culture at a company that you have worked with?
Yes.
And why that embraces so well?
So what an insightful question. So in a word, I'd say silos. Over the last 7 years, I've, designed about 200 of these, autonomous AI systems for lots of different companies. And no matter what company I go into, I usually work with the top tier manufacturers, and there's these silos. And I say, well, okay, what's the goal? And they say throughput. And I say, that's not the goal at all times. And they say, oh, well, yeah, the efficiency folks work in this different department. And of course, there's the classic IT and the OT. And then there's IT, OT, and then the innovation departments. And I think the silos are going to have to be broken down, in order for us to, really get this done as far as this kind of change. I mean, the real threat is some of the most high-value skills in these manufacturing and logistics processes could go extinct because of the folks that are retiring, and an intelligent autonomous agent is something that could actually store this expertise and become a colleague, but also become a database, for these skills. But in order to do that, you have to break down, the barriers, frankly, between, IT and OT. And I've seen quite a few companies do it well. The companies that I see doing it well, they're forming these tiger teams. Eaton is a good example. They're not one of my clients, but I learn a lot for them. And they, have these this kind of SEAL team of folks from all sorts of disciplines. Some are from IT, some are from OT, some are software engineers, some are mechanical engineers, and they're responsible for solving the industry's problems.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like that Eaton does is what they're doing with their lighthouse plants. So they have 200 plants, and this is things that they've talked about in the press. But they have a certain amount of lighthouse plants that are, there's like a contract where you get special privileges, you get special funding as a lighthouse plant, but you're also responsible for adopting the technology.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'll say is really respecting the subject matter expert. I think the tech industry, and I've worked in the tech industry for a very long time, has disrespected, condescended to, and really misunderstood subject matter experts. And if you don't include them in every step of the process, well then of course they're going to resist when you try to adopt these technologies.
Yeah.
One question I have as I'm thinking about the journey here, we talk a lot about, especially in these conversations, especially in Automate, how there's a skills gap, how we're addressing the workforce shortage. And one thing I like to ask folks is, what is your unique perspective on empowering the workforce shortage, filling the skills gap? What would you say your perspective, and maybe Composable's perspective, on addressing the workforce issues we're seeing right now?
It is my perspective and Composable's perspective that companies should be thinking about developing a database of skills. So, Max Petrie, he used to run R&D snack foods at PepsiCo, and I had designed an agent for his team, and it made Cheetos, by the way. It was on an extruder. And he told me that the most valuable asset they have is the skills of their operators. So if every company has some number, a dozen, 50, 100 of these priceless, invaluable skills, then you should really have a database of these skills. And so if you have a kind of cadre of agents, and even better, a set of reusable skills that you can mix and match into agents, then you have this kind of loop. You have this great cycle where the agents are teaching the new operators, the expert operators are teaching the agents, and everyone's working together kind of like colleagues. And it's to me, it's a matrix of human and machine. It's not, the future isn't, robots everywhere. The future isn't, we don't need intelligent automation. The future is actually, there's a really blurry line where you just go in, you see all these agents and all these humans working together.
So we're wrapping up on our last few minutes, so I'm going to steal Chris's constant question, how he always ends his podcast on Manufacturing Happy Hour. I'm going to do a little twist. You do a lot of press conferences. You guys are out there, you're doing a lot of things. What's a question that you wish you were asked more, or you haven't been asked, when it comes to what you want the future of AI to be?
Oh, that's interesting.
Or the future of your company to be.
That was a great spin on that question.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's an awesome question. I think the question I wish people would ask me is why AI has been so difficult to adopt. Why has machine learning and AI been so difficult to adopt, and what can we do to fix it?
All right. There's the question.
And it's really about subject matter expertise, and it's also about, back to the tribal kind of warfare, it's all, when you get the silos and you get the tribes, you also get very specific technologies. This one technology is to rule them all. Generative AI is everything. And before that, deep reinforcement learning was everything, and supervised learning, and you can go all the way back to expert systems. It's actually, that's like saying, wrenches are everything, or hammers are everything, or screwdrivers are everything. You actually need all the tools, and you need a methodology for combining those tools together.
Awesome. Well, Kence Anderson, co-founder and CEO, we really appreciate it. How do we learn more about what Composable is doing?
So you can go down to Composable, COMPOSABL.com. You can sign up for the no-code UI, and you can learn a lot more.
Awesome. Well, Chris Luecke from Manufacturing Happy Hour, Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. Thanks for watching this section. Of course, if you want to learn more, go ahead and check out those links. We'll talk to you guys soon.